Okay, so I have kind of a core question to ask. Why is it that people can go to college for 8 years in order to become a surgeon, say, and then the general populace doesn't say that, well, surgery is too expensive to have a surgeon do it. I have a good buddy of mine who used to do surgery, and I'll just have him take care of me. Obviously, it's a ridiculous statement because you're dealing with the most precious thing to you, which is your body. But I think the big problem that comes in is when people start using the word fair. Um, People will say something like, "Well, I don't mind paying a fair markup, but I don't want someone to take advantage of me or rip me off." People will use that term. And on one hand, to be ripped off in my book means for someone to misrepresent something or to say they're going to do something and then not do it, or give you a price and give you the idea that they're getting one thing when they're getting something else, or selling them something they don't need. That's what ripping off is. But a lot of people will use the term that's a rip off, and what they mean by that is that the pricing doesn't represent what I could go and have my friend do it for, or what I could do it for myself. And to me, understanding that there's value associated with the knowledge that people have, not just the fact that they can do it more quickly or they can do a better job at it, generally speaking, but that it takes time and dedication for people to become an HVAC technician or a licensed electrician or whatever the case may be. And that there should be some respect for that in the same way that you respect a surgeon or a lawyer or a scientist or whatever. And this whole concept that people who go to 4-year colleges and then get another 4 years for their doctorate, that somehow they deserve something that your average worker who has worked a couple years but has worked very hard in order to get to a place where they can fix an air conditioner or do plumbing or fix your car. The idea that it's a ripoff if you could get it for less is always something that sort of puzzles me, because it's so rampant, that type of usage of the word ripoff. And let me just give you an example. So you would say something like, well, you should only make a 10% profit. I've heard people say that you should limit it so that way you can only make a 10% profit. Well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that you should make only a 10% markup on your parts, or you should only make 10% increase on what your labor actually costs you? Because of course that's not realistic. No business could stay open for more than a couple days that way, because the cost of doing business is so great by the time you figure in insurance and warranty support and keeping the lights on, phones, and gas in the vehicles and all that. If what you mean by that is we should only make a 10% net profit, well, we would all love to make a 10% net profit. That would be fantastic. That would mean that at the end of the day, after everyone's paid and after everything's done, the company makes 10% on the overall gross receipts taken in on a yearly basis. That would be excellent. So that's always something that kind of puzzles me, because most people would say, yeah, 10% makes sense, but what they don't understand is that you can't then just look at the cost of a part and say, oh, well, then you should just add 10% to that, because there's so much more that goes into it. Let alone the fact that the expertise of the people who are doing it, that's something that took them a lot of effort to get to that place. It's not something that you do overnight. So what I'm coming down to say here is that why don't we let the free market work? We're in a society nowadays where most people don't want to get their hands dirty, don't want to crawl up in a 100-degree attic, don't want to work until 10 o'clock at night fixing air conditioners. And so it's just fine. I don't want people who don't want to do it. On the other hand, recognize that in the same way that a doctor made sacrifices to become a doctor, that goes into what that person then makes. And so if you want to have a quality person, someone who actually has your best interest at heart and is going to do a good job and is also going to crawl up in your attic, or is also going to come out at 10 o'clock at night to fix your air conditioner, recognize that they have earned the right to make a living doing that. And that by having that sort of feeling of fairness, where you think fairness means that you should be right in range with the cheapest price that you could possibly get doing it, you're really doing yourself a disservice over the long run. Because what you end up doing is you end up squeezing good people out of the business, and that's why the lowest common denominator ends up taking over the trades often, is because that's what the consumer in sort of a unknowing way begins to expect. Understand there are people who do rip people off. There are people who take advantage, but taking advantage is all about not doing what you say you're going to do, not communicating, not educating, not being fair, not having the customer's best interest at heart. But you can have the customer's best interest at heart, be totally upfront, and also not be the cheapest. In some cases, be well more expensive than the cheapest option that people would have. But knowing that over the long run, it does represent a very good value because you're going to be there whenever you're needed, which is something that I would just encourage people to think about, because we have reached a new age where your good portion of your workers, especially your skilled, intelligent workforce, aren't doing manual labor anymore. And so that's okay, nothing wrong with that. But I think those who are willing to still do it, who are still willing to get their hands dirty and work very, very hard day in and day out, they really need a place of respect within our society, especially in a society where that is no longer the norm, and most people want to get out of that type of position as opposed to excelling in it. Just a little food for thought there, and of course, it's something that's very passionate, that I'm very passionate about, because one of the things that I really want to do is develop people within this business, and I want them to be honored by the culture. Probably wishful thinking, but I would like to be part of the solution to that and help educate people to think a little bit differently when they say something like, that's a ripoff, and by that they mean that's a higher price.